So one idea I want to share with you is that the fact that Tisha B'Av this year is what we call a nidcha, it's pushed off. Tisha B'Av as a nidcha means you can have any other fast except for Yom Kippur, basically, it's pushed off. Yom Kippur will have it on Shabbos. So Tisha B'Av is pushed off. It's supposed to be on Shabbos. It's going to be on Sunday. We mentioned that there are some restrictions that you'll fulfill on Shabbos as well. But basically, it is on Sunday. So the fact that it's a nidcha, does it really change that much? The only thing it really changes are the restrictions afterwards, which we'll hopefully discuss tomorrow. The restrictions that follow Tisha B'Av after are a little bit lighter than it would be on a regular year. But I want to add, we'll say the following scenario. The Gemara says that Tisha B'Av is on the 9th, but I believe it's Rav Yochanan that says if I had my, what's a good word for that? If I had my will, if I had my druthers, yeah, I always wanted to use it in a sentence. If I had my druthers, I would make Tisha B'Av on the 10th, not the 9th. Why? Because Rove of the Bayit was burning on the 10th. The majority of the house was burning on the 10th. So we saw this in our learning group a couple of weeks ago, that perhaps there's a dispute between as to which house we're talking about. First house, first temple, first Beis HaMikdash, or the second Beis HaMikdash. And that would determine that the second Beis HaMikdash seemingly was burning more on the 10th. First one was maybe more on the 9th. Okay, but if he had his druthers, he would make it that Tisha B'Av would be on the 10th, because the majority of the house is really burning on the 10th. So what happens this year? This year, we follow Tisha B'Av on the 9th, but we push it off to the 10th. So what do we have over here? Rav Yochanan. We're able to fulfill that Tisha B'Av actually exists on the 10th. Okay, but it happens to be every other fast we'd push off. There's no other machlok, there's no other dispute. But here's the question. The question for us is, where do our disputes lie? What other holiday do we have that you potentially have a dispute? Don't say the second day of Yom Tov, of Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuos. That's your hint. Don't say those. What other holiday do we actually have where you actually have a split in when the holiday should be celebrated? What's the answer? Oh, I didn't even think about that. Shavuos is one. Shavuos one, whether it's Vav or Zayin. I didn't think about Shavuos, right? And there's reason for that also. Purim, right? So what is the difference between Shavuos and Purim? And then we'll go to Tisha B'Av. So here's the thought, okay? Shavuos is a dispute whether it's on the 6th or the 7th. And one of the answers given in the Gemara and in the commentaries is the reason why there's no defined day, even though we follow one particular day. And in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, we're able to follow both days. So we're able to fulfill either way. So one of the reasons given is because you don't want to have a definitive day of when the Torah was given. A person shouldn't say, I'll only learn Torah on the day that it's given. The rest of the year, I'm off. Right? So we want to say that Vav and Zayin, the reason why 6 and 7 is to show that there's a dispute, to show that Torah is all the time. We don't have a definitive day. Even within that, as to when it's given, is not as important, because you should realize, you should feel as if Torah is given to you every day. What about Purim? Purim, we have the 14th and the 15th of Adar. Purim is outside of Shushan, outside of Yerushalayim, that you have it on the 14th, and then in Yerushalayim you have it on the 15th. Why do we have it that way? Oh, because they were still fighting. Well, it sounds like a Beis HaMikdash example over here. So why do we have Purim on the 14th and 15th? So one answer given on that is to make a distinction so that you should realize that this is considered a rabbinic law. That if it was a biblical law, there's a set day, but we want to make sure that this one stands out entirely. You should realize that it's rabbinic. So therefore, we're going to make it that some people will do it this day, some people will do it that day, and that makes a distinction over here. So you have Purim and you have Shavuos that are trying to make distinctions in when the day actually is. And then you have this thing called Tisha B'Av. It's like, if I had my will, I would make it on the 10th. Come on, like, what's the deal? Why would I do this to have it on the 10th? Everyone agree, right? What is this about? So this is the partial question. I'll give you a partial answer. I don't accept my answer, but I'll give you a partial answer on this idea. Why would it be that Tisha B'Av has that? So I think there's an aspect of mourning that we know that in Shulchan Aruch, that it tells us that you're supposed to have a zeicha l'chorban. Everyone's home is supposed to have a zeicha l'chorban, a commemoration for destruction. So what is commemoration of destruction? Most of us will leave over an unfinished piece of our wall that if you already did, it's too late. But if you're building a home, you leave over a piece unfinished. It's not painted and the like. And then they came up with things that people said, like, I want to have an unfinished piece on my wall, but I want it to look nice. So they buy a nice frame, and they put a little sign under it that says, this is in honor of the destruction, so it no longer looks unfinished, it now looks like a nice frame. I remember when I was in yeshiva, there was a family that every Shabbos meal, he'd come to the table and bring out this big empty plate with a fork in it. And they say, what is this? He'd say, it's the fish we're not having. Okay, it's the fish we're not having, zeicha l'chorban. Right? So this is what he would bring out like every week. Like after a while, you're like, okay, can you serve something else that we're not going to have instead of the fish? But this is what he did. This is what he did basically every week. He brought out the fish, and now we want to have something a little different that we're not going to have. So there is a concept of Zeicha L'Chorban on a regular basis. Everyone should have within their thoughts and within their mind that there's something I'm missing in my life because of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Perhaps, a very slight perhaps over here, that maybe this is one of the ideas of having the 9th and 10th. It's true, physically, the distinction between the burning of the temple, if we can even just say it like that, the destruction that was happening 9th and 10th, but maybe it's actually correlated to the idea we need to have it, that it's no defined time that we have it, and maybe we're supposed to have a little bit more thoughts about destruction and the sadness that it occurs in what our lives are actually all about. Maybe we need to have that on a regular basis. Okay, next.